My head of security interrupted my speech about a girl causing a scene outside. "Sir, she says she's your daughter." I didn't believe it until I saw my family's birthmark on her neck, and my world stopped. She pulled down the collar of her faded blue jacket with trembling fingers, her green eyes locked on mine. Tears streaked her face, but her voice was steady as steel when she spoke. "Do you have one too?" "The birthmark. Mom said all Halstead men have it. A crescent moon on the left side of the neck. She said if you had it, then I'd know the stories were true, that you're really my father." I stood frozen in that hotel lobby, 300 business leaders waiting for me to return to my speech about artificial intelligence and the future of healthcare. None of that mattered anymore. My hand moved to my neck without conscious thought, fingers finding the mark I'd had since birth. The mark my grandfather had. The mark my father had. The mark no one outside our family should have known about. Slowly, I pulled down my collar. The girl, this 15-year-old stranger claiming to be my daughter, let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Her hand flew to her own neck, smooth and unmarked. "I don't have it," she whispered. "Mom said girls don't get it. Only the boys. But she said if you had it, if you really had it, then everything she told me about you was true." And in that moment, standing in the marble lobby of Boston's Regency Hotel with curious onlookers forming a circle around us, my entire world stopped. Have you ever had a single moment completely shatter everything you thought you knew about your life? A moment where the past you thought you'd buried came back to claim you? Where the choices you made, the bridges you burned, the doors you slammed shut, all came crashing back with consequences you never imagined. That's what happened to me. I'm Griffin Halstead, billionaire CEO, tech visionary, the man Forbes called one of the most influential entrepreneurs of the decade. I built Halstead Technologies from absolutely nothing, from a dream in a garage to a $70 billion empire that changed how the world thinks about innovation. I had everything. The penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor, the private jet, the magazine covers, the respect of every major player in Silicon Valley. I had achieved every goal I'd set for myself when I was a poor kid from a working-class neighborhood, watching my father come home exhausted from the factory every single night. What I didn't have was a family. What I didn't know was that I'd thrown one away 15 years ago without even realizing it. This is the story of how my head of security interrupted the most important speech of my career to tell me a girl was causing a scene in the lobby. How she claimed to be my daughter. How I didn't believe it, couldn't believe it, until I saw that birthmark. And how everything I thought I knew about success, about sacrifice, about what really matters in life, came crashing down around me. If you've ever wondered what it's worth to gain the whole world but lose the things that actually matter, stay with me. Because what happened next changed everything. The morning started like any other Wednesday. My alarm went off at 5:15. I was in the gym by 5:30, running through my usual routine while my assistant sent me the day's schedule. Conference call with Tokyo investors at 7. Meeting with the development team at 9. Lunch with a potential acquisition target at noon. And then the Tech Innovation Summit at 3, where I was the keynote speaker. 300 of Boston's most influential business leaders, all gathered to hear me talk about the future of artificial intelligence in healthcare. It was the kind of opportunity that could lead to major partnerships, significant investments, the kind of connections that push a company from successful to legendary. I'd spent weeks on that speech. Every word carefully chosen. Every data point meticulously researched. Every joke timed for maximum impact. This was the kind of presentation that could define the next phase of Halstead Technologies' growth. The ballroom of the Regency Hotel was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Boston Common. Round tables filled with executives in expensive suits, tablets out, ready to take notes on whatever wisdom I was about to share. I stood at the podium, confidence coursing through my veins. This was my element. This was where I belonged. In front of crowds, sharing vision, inspiring action, making things happen. I was maybe 20 minutes into my presentation, right in the middle of explaining how machine learning algorithms could revolutionize patient diagnostics, when I saw him. Frank Castellano, my head of security for the past 15 years. The man had been with me since Halstead Technologies was just 6 employees working out of a converted warehouse. Frank was former Secret Service, the kind of professional who anticipated problems before they materialized. Calm under pressure. unflappable in crisis. I had never, not once in 15 years, seen Frank interrupt me during a presentation. But there he was, walking down the center aisle of the ballroom with purposeful urgency that made my stomach clench. Every eye in the room followed him. Whispers rippled through the audience. Phone cameras started rising, executives sensing that something unexpected was about to happen. I paused mid-sentence, my carefully prepared speech dying on my lips. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said smoothly, forcing my voice to remain calm and professional. "If you'll excuse me for just one moment." Frank reached the stage. His weathered face was grave, the expression of a man delivering news he knew would detonate like a bomb. He leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation outside that requires your immediate attention." I glanced at the audience, at 300 faces turned toward us with rapt curiosity, then back at Frank. "Can it wait 10 minutes?" I asked quietly. "I'm nearly finished." Frank's jaw tightened. "It's a girl, Mr. Halstead. She's causing quite a scene in the lobby, demanding to see you." My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. "So have her removed. That's what hotel security is for." Frank hesitated, and in that hesitation, I felt the ground beginning to shift beneath my feet. "She says she's your daughter, sir." The words hit me like a physical blow. The ambient noise of the ballroom faded to nothing. The shuffling programs, the whispered conversations, the hum of the air conditioning, all of it disappeared into a dull roar in my ears. "That's impossible," I said, my voice sounding strange and distant. "I don't have a daughter." Frank's expression remained carefully neutral. "Sir, she's quite insistent. Hotel security is about to remove her, but I thought, given the claim, you should at least see her before any decisions are made." I looked out at the waiting audience, at the faces turned expectantly toward the stage, at the event coordinator hovering nervously near the side exit, clearly wondering what kind of crisis was unfolding. My carefully prepared conclusion about artificial intelligence and medical ethics, the closing that I'd practiced a dozen times, suddenly seemed monumentally unimportant. "Tell them I've had a family emergency," I instructed the coordinator, who had materialized beside Frank with a pinched, concerned expression. "Apologize profusely on my behalf. Offer to reschedule." As I followed Frank through the side exit, my mind raced through possibilities. A con artist? Some elaborate scam targeting wealthy executives? A disturbed young woman who'd latched onto me from business profiles? It had to be a mistake. It had to be. I'd been married once, 15 years ago, to Josephine Laurent. Our marriage had lasted exactly 18 months before imploding in a spectacular fashion. We'd fought about everything toward the end. About my work schedule. About her feeling neglected. About my insistence that we wait to have children until Halstead Technologies was more established. About her accusation that I cared more about building a company than building a life with her. The divorce had been bitter. Final. I'd walked away and never looked back, too hurt and too proud to examine whether she might have been right about my priorities. But we'd never had children. Josephine had wanted them desperately. I'd insisted we wait. By the time I was ready to reconsider, she was gone. So this girl, whoever she was, had to be mistaken, or lying, or confused. That's what I told myself as Frank led me through the service corridors of the Regency Hotel, our footsteps echoing on polished floors. That's what I was absolutely certain of, right up until the moment I walked into the lobby and saw her. The scene was controlled chaos. A cluster of hotel staff surrounded a teenage girl who stood with her arms crossed, chin raised in defiance despite the tears streaking her face. She wore faded jeans, scuffed sneakers, and a blue jacket that had seen better days. Her honey blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked scared and fierce in equal measure, like a cornered animal ready to fight. "That's him," she said immediately, her voice cutting through the murmured conversations. Her arm shot out, finger pointing directly at me. "That's Griffin Halstead." I approached slowly, my analytical mind cataloging details the way it always did when processing new information. She was tall for her age, probably around 5'6", 15, maybe 16 years old. Green eyes that didn't match my dark brown ones. But there was something in the set of her jaw, in the way she held herself with rigid control despite obvious distress, something that sent an inexplicable chill down my spine. "I'm Griffin Halstead," I said carefully, keeping my voice calm and measured. But I think there's been some mistake. I don't have a daughter. Her eyes flashed with something between anger and hurt. My mother is Josephine Laurent, she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor I could see in her hands. And I'm Adelaide Halstead Laurent. I'm 15 years old, and you are absolutely my father, whether you know about me or not. The mention of Josephine's name sent a jolt through my system. I hadn't spoken to my ex-wife in over a decade. Hadn't even heard her name mentioned in years. She'd vanished from Boston after our divorce, and I'd been too proud, too hurt, too focused on building my empire to seek her out. Where is your mother? I asked, my eyes scanning the lobby as if Josephine might materialize from behind one of the marble pillars. At home in Providence, Adelaide said. Her defiance wavered slightly, revealing the frightened teenager beneath the brave exterior. She doesn't know I'm here. She'd kill me if she knew. Then how did you get here? I took the train. It's only an hour from Providence to Boston. She straightened her shoulders, that fierce determination returning to her face. I needed to see you. I needed to know if the stories Mom told me were true, or if you were really the person she said you were. And what person is that? I asked, something tight and uncomfortable forming in my chest. Someone too obsessed with success to care about anything else, Adelaide said, her green eyes blazing with barely contained emotion. Someone who chose his company over his family every single time. But I wanted to see for myself. I wanted to know if my father was worth finding. The words cut deeper than I expected. Around us, hotel staff and curious onlookers watched the scene unfold like spectators at a tennis match. I could feel their eyes on us, could imagine the phones recording this moment, could already see the headlines. Billionaire CEO confronted by alleged daughter. Frank, I said quietly, never taking my eyes off Adelaide. Please clear the area. Get us somewhere private. There's a conference room on the second floor, Frank replied, already moving to disperse the crowd with the efficiency of a man trained to handle delicate situations. I'm not going anywhere with you, Adelaide said quickly, fear finally breaking through her brave facade. Not until I know for sure. Know what? That you're really my father. That this isn't some crazy mistake. She took a shaky breath. The birthmark. Mom said all the Halstead men have it. A birthmark on the left side of the neck, shaped like a crescent moon. My hand moved involuntarily to my neck, fingers finding the familiar mark I'd had since birth. It was a family trait, passed down through my father's line. My grandfather had it. My father had it. I had it. It was such an insignificant thing, never mentioned in interviews or magazine profiles. Too personal, too private, too meaningless to anyone outside the family. No one outside the family would know about it unless they'd been told by someone who'd seen it up close. She said if you had it, Adelaide continued, her voice smaller now, more vulnerable, then I'd know the stories were true. That everything she told me about you wasn't just anger or bitterness talking. That you're really my father. I stared at this girl, this fierce, determined stranger, and felt the world begin to tilt beneath my feet. Slowly, hardly believing what I was doing, I reached up and pulled down my collar, revealing the crescent-shaped birthmark on the left side of my neck. Adelaide's eyes widened. Her hand flew to her own neck, fingers touching smooth, unmarked skin. Tears filled her eyes and spilled over, cutting fresh tracks down her cheeks. I don't have it, she whispered. Mom said girls don't get it. Only the boys. But she said if you had it, if you really had it, then everything was true. The noise of the lobby faded away. The curious onlookers. The hotel staff. Frank standing guard. All of it disappeared until there was only me and this girl who knew something she shouldn't know unless Josephine had told her. Unless Josephine had been close enough to me to see that birthmark. Unless Adelaide was telling the truth. Conference room, I managed to say, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Now, please. The small conference room on the second floor felt suffocating despite its generous size. Cream-colored walls. A long polished table. Leather chairs. A projector screen on one wall. The kind of neutral, corporate space designed for business meetings, not life-altering revelations. Adelaide sat across from me at the table, her earlier bravado crumbling into uncertainty. She clutched her backpack to her chest like a shield. Frank stood by the door, a silent sentinel, his presence both reassuring and unsettling. This was a private security expert trained to protect me from threats. But the threat sitting across from me wasn't a kidnapper or corporate spy. It was a 15-year-old girl who might be my daughter. Start from the beginning, I said, forcing my voice to remain calm and level despite the chaos in my mind. Tell me everything. Adelaide took a shaky breath. She looked young in that moment, vulnerable. Not the fierce girl who demanded to see me in the lobby, but a scared teenager who'd taken a huge risk and didn't know if it would pay off. Mom, and you got divorced 15 years ago, she began, her voice quiet but steady. She was pregnant when it happened, but she didn't know yet. She found out 2 weeks after the divorce papers were signed. The timeline crashed through my memories like a wrecking ball. 15 years ago, the divorce had been finalized in late March. I remembered because it had happened the same week Halstead Technologies secured our first major investor, a $20 million injection that had felt like validation of every sacrifice I'd made. I told myself that losing my marriage was just the price of success, that Josephine hadn't understood the demands of building something revolutionary. I'd never considered that she might have been pregnant. She tried to tell you, Adelaide continued, her fingers twisting together on the table. She called your office, but your assistant said you'd left instructions not to accept any calls from her. She sent letters to your apartment, but they came back marked return to sender. She even came to your office building once, but security wouldn't let her up. Each revelation was a knife twist. I remembered those months after the divorce with painful clarity. I'd been furious, hurt, determined to excise Josephine from my life completely. I'd instructed my assistant to block her calls. I'd moved to a new apartment without forwarding my address. I'd built walls so high and thick that nothing could penetrate them, including, apparently, the news that I was going to be a father. How long did she try? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. For months, Adelaide said. She tried for 4 months. Called the office at least twice a week. Sent 3 letters. Showed up in person once. But you'd made it clear you didn't want any contact with her, and eventually she gave up. Why didn't she try harder? The words left my mouth before I could stop them, and I immediately recognized how unfair they were. Adelaide's eyes flashed with anger, and I saw something of myself in that fierce reaction. She did try, she said sharply. For months. But you made it impossible. You blocked her at every turn. You couldn't have sent a clearer message that you wanted nothing to do with her. So she decided to respect that choice. She moved to Providence, took back her maiden name, and raised me on her own. The weight of those words settled over me like a heavy blanket. I never knew, I said quietly. I swear to you, Adelaide, I never knew. I believe you, she said, and the simple acceptance in her voice somehow made it worse. Mom always said you didn't know. She never let me think you'd abandoned us on purpose. She said you were young and ambitious and hurt, and that people make bad choices when they're in pain. But she also said, her voice growing softer, that maybe you'd made your priorities clear. That even if you had known, the company probably would have mattered more. The accusation stung because it might have been true. At 29, I'd been consumed by Halstead Technologies. The pressure to prove myself, to escape my working-class background, to build something significant, it had overshadowed everything else, including my marriage to a brilliant architect whose own career was just beginning to flourish. Would it have made a difference? If I'd known, would I have changed anything, or would I have found a way to justify putting the company first? I didn't have an answer to that question, and the uncertainty terrified me. Tell me about yourself, I said, changing the subject because I wasn't ready to face the full weight of my failures. Tell me about your life. Adelaide studied me for a long moment, as if deciding whether I deserved to know. Then she began to talk. She told me about growing up in a small apartment in Providence, about watching her mother build a successful interior design business from absolutely nothing, working late into the night while Adelaide did homework at the drafting table, the two of them sharing cheap takeout and big dreams. She told me about her school, how she'd discovered a love for mathematics in 4th grade and never looked back, how she joined the robotics club in middle school and found her passion in the intersection of engineering and programming, how she'd led her team to a regional championship last year, beating high school teams despite being only in 8th grade at the time. She told me about her other interests, piano lessons that her mother screwed Ped together money for it because she believed every child should know music. A cat named Schrödinger that she'd rescued from a shelter. Books about quantum physics that she read for fun. Dreams of studying mechanical engineering at MIT, following in the footsteps of pioneers who'd changed the world. With every detail, I felt the weight of what I'd missed growing heavier on my chest. First steps I'd never witnessed. First words I'd never heard. First day of school photos I'd never taken. Piano recitals and science fairs and birthday parties. Scraped knees and bad dreams and teenage heartbreaks. 15 years of moments I could never get back. You're brilliant, I said when she finally fell silent. You're absolutely extraordinary, Adelaide. I know, she replied with a slight smile that reminded me sharply of my own arrogance at that age. I'm in the 99th percentile for standardized testing. I have a 160 IQ. I taught myself to code when I was 10. Mom says I get the intelligence from both of you, but the complete lack of humility is all yours. Despite everything, I laughed. It was a short, surprised sound, but genuine. Your mother said that? She says you used to walk into rooms like you owned them. Like your presence was a gift everyone should be grateful for. Adelaide's smile faded. She also says you were kind, once. Before the success changed you. Before you decided that being the smartest person in the room mattered more than being a good person. The observation cut deep because I recognized the truth in it. Success had changed me. The poor kid from the factory neighborhood had become the billionaire CEO who measured his worth in market valuations and industry accolades. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost sight of the idealistic young man who'd wanted to change the world, not just profit from it. Why now? I asked. Why come find me today, after 15 years? Adelaide's expression shifted, vulnerability breaking through her confident facade. Because I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Mom's been sick. Nothing serious, she added quickly, seeing my alarm. Just pneumonia, and she's already recovering. But it made me realize that she's all I have. If something happened to her, if she wasn't here anymore, I'd be completely alone. She looked down at her hands, fingers twisting together. I thought maybe, if you knew about me, if you wanted to know me, then maybe I wouldn't be alone. Maybe I'd have someone else. Just in case. The raw honesty of it broke something open inside me. This girl, this brilliant, brave, extraordinary girl, had taken a train to Boston by herself. Had faced down hotel security and a father who was essentially a stranger. Had risked rejection and disappointment and pain, all because she was afraid of being alone. You're not alone, I said firmly, the words coming from somewhere deep and primal. Not anymore. Adelaide, I don't know how to be a father. I've missed 15 years of learning. I don't know your favorite foods, or what makes you laugh, or how to comfort you when you're sad. I don't know any of the 1,000 small things that parents know about their children. I leaned forward, holding her gaze. But if you're willing to be patient with me, if you're willing to let me try despite everything I've already failed at, I would like very much to be your father. Not just biologically. Actually, truly, in all the ways that matter. Adelaide's eyes filled with tears again. Do you mean that? I mean it, I said. I can't change the past. I can't get back the years I missed. But I can be here now, for whatever future we have. If you want that. I want that, she whispered. That's why I came. We sat in silence for a moment, the magnitude of what we were agreeing to hanging in the air between us. Then Adelaide's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and winced. Mom's freaking out, she said. She came home early from a client meeting and found me gone. She's called me 17 times in the last hour. Does she know where you are? Not yet. I told her I was at a study group. Adelaide bit her lip. She's going to kill me when she finds out I lied. And when she finds out I came to see you, she's going to absolutely lose it. I think, I said carefully, that I need to talk to your mother. Adelaide's eyes widened. Are you sure? She made me promise never to contact you. She's going to be so angry. She has every right to be angry, I replied. At me for making myself unreachable 15 years ago. At you for breaking your promise. But this conversation can't happen without her. She's your mother. She's raised you for 15 years. She deserves to be part of whatever happens next. Adelaide nodded slowly, then typed out a text message. When she hit send, her hands were shaking. I told her where I am, she said quietly, and that I'm with you. Her phone rang almost immediately. Adelaide stared at it, fear evident on her face, then answered. Mom, I can explain. I couldn't hear Josephine's words, but I could hear her tone. sharp with panic and fury and relief all tangled together. I know I promised. But I needed to see him, Mom. I needed to know. Adelaide listened for a moment. Yes, he's right here. He wants to talk to you. She held the phone out to me, her expression uncertain. I took it, my heart hammering in a way it never did during high-stakes business negotiations. Josie, I said, using the nickname I hadn't spoken in over a decade. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. Then Josephine's voice, tight with controlled emotion. Is she safe? She's safe, I promised. She's sitting right across from me, completely unharmed. Frank, my head of security, is here. We're in a private conference room at the Regency Hotel. I'm coming to get her. I'd like to bring her to you, I said. If that's all right. I think we need to talk, Josie. All three of us. Another long silence. Then, quietly, do you believe her? I pulled down my collar. I showed her the birthmark, Josephine. The one only you would know about. Only you could have told her about. I heard her breath catch. So you know? I know I have a daughter I never knew existed, I said, my voice rougher than I intended. I know I missed 15 years of her life because I was too proud and too stupid to let you reach me. I know that you tried to tell me, and I shut you out. And I know that I need to make this right, however I can. Josephine was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier. Bring her home, Griffin. We'll talk when you get here. She gave me the address, a street name in Providence I didn't recognize, and ended the call. I handed the phone back to Adelaide, who was watching me with an unreadable expression. She's not yelling at you, Adelaide observed. That's either really good or really bad. I think it's complicated, I replied. The way everything about this is complicated. Frank cleared his throat from his position by the door. Sir, I'll have your car brought around. The drive to Providence is approximately an hour, depending on traffic. Thank you, Frank. I stood, my legs feeling unsteady. Adelaide, are you ready? She nodded, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. As ready as I'll ever be. The drive to Providence felt both endless and far too short. My Tesla navigated the highway with smooth efficiency while Adelaide sat in the passenger seat, alternating between giving directions and texting updates to her mother. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting everything in golden light. We didn't talk much. The enormity of what had happened, what was about to happen, seemed to fill the car with weighted silence. I kept stealing glances at her. My daughter. The words felt foreign, impossible, yet increasingly real with every mile. She had my hands, I realized. Long fingers, built for precision. And there, the way she furrowed her brow when concentrating on her phone, that was mine too. Small echoes of genetics that I'd never thought to look for because I'd never imagined they existed. Take the next exit, Adelaide said as we neared Providence. Then left at the light. The neighborhoods transformed as we drove. Urban sprawl giving way to tree-lined streets. Older homes with character and history. This wasn't the upscale area where young professionals lived. This was established, middle class, the kind of neighborhood where families put down roots. There, Adelaide pointed to a charming craftsman-style house with a wide porch and flower boxes in the windows. That's home. I pulled to the curb and sat for a moment, staring at the house. Warm light glowed from inside. A swing hung from the porch ceiling. A small garden lined the walkway. It was so different from my sterile downtown penthouse with its floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture. This was a home. A real home where people lived and loved and built memories. The front door opened before we reached the porch, and Josephine appeared. 15 years had only enhanced her beauty. Her dark hair, which had been long when we were married, now fell in soft waves to her shoulders. She wore jeans and a simple cream sweater. No makeup that I could see. She didn't need it. She'd always been beautiful in that effortless way that had nothing to do with trying. But it was her eyes that stopped me. Those incredible amber eyes that I'd never forgotten, even when I'd tried. They were the same color, the same shape, but there was something different in them now. A strength that hadn't been there 15 years ago. A confidence that came from surviving, from building a life on her own terms. She looked at Adelaide first, her expression tight, with barely controlled emotion. Inside. Now, she said, her voice calm but firm. Adelaide moved past her mother without protest, disappearing into the house. Josephine's eyes shifted to me, and I felt the full weight of 15 years of silence and hurt. You too, Griffin. The interior of the house matched its exterior warmth. Hardwood floors covered with colorful rugs. Walls lined with bookshelves and photographs. Art everywhere, some professional pieces, some clearly Adelaide's childhood drawings, all displayed with equal care. This was a space created by someone who understood beauty and function, who could make a house feel like a home. My eyes caught on the photographs. Adelaide as a baby, round-cheeked and smiling. Adelaide as a toddler, covered in paint. Adelaide on her first day of kindergarten, missing her front teeth. Adelaide accepting a robotics trophy, beaming with pride. 15 years of moments I'd never been part of, all documented and treasured and displayed. The ache in my chest intensified with each image. Josephine closed the door behind me with a decisive click. Adelaide stood in the living room doorway, her eyes darting between us like she was watching a tennis match. Adelaide, go to your room, Josephine said quietly. Mom, I want to hear this. Room. Now. You're already grounded for the next month. Don't make it worse. Adelaide's shoulders slumped, but she didn't argue further. She trudged up the stairs, and I heard a door close overhead. Josephine turned to me fully, and we stood in her entryway like strangers. Like we hadn't once known every inch of each other. Like we hadn't once promised forever. I tried to tell you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of 15 years of accumulated pain. I tried so hard, Griffin. I know, I said. Adelaide told me. About the calls and the letters and coming to the office. Josie, I'm so sorry. I was angry and stupid and cruel, and because of that, I missed 15 years of my daughter's life. Our daughter, Josephine corrected softly, the same way she'd always corrected me when I got possessive about anything. She's ours, not just mine or yours. Our daughter, I agreed. The words felt strange and wonderful and terrible all at once. Josephine moved past me into the living room, and I followed. She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded in her lap with careful control. I remained standing, too restless to sit. She's been asking about you for years, Josephine said, staring at her hands. Ever since she was old enough to understand that other kids had fathers and she didn't. I showed her pictures. Old photos from when we were married. I told her stories about the man you were when we first met. The brilliant, passionate man who stayed up all night talking about changing the world. Who believed technology could solve humanity's biggest problems. She looked up at me, and I saw tears shimmering in her eyes. I tried not to let my bitterness color her image of you. She deserved to know her father wasn't a monster. Just a man who made choices I couldn't live with. You had every right to be bitter, I said quietly. Maybe, Josephine acknowledged. But what good would it have done? You weren't in our lives. Being angry at you wouldn't have paid the bills, or helped Adelaide with her homework, or made her feel less alone on Father's Day. The simple pragmatism of her words cut deep. While I'd been building my empire, Josephine had been raising our daughter alone, making hard choices, sacrificing her own hurt for Adelaide's well-being, being the kind of selfless parent I'd never had the chance to be. I want to be in her life, I said, if you'll let me, if she wants me. I know I have no right to ask. She wants it, Josephine interrupted. That's why she went to find you against my wishes, against my warnings. She's wanted to know you her whole life, Griffin. And you? I asked. What do you want? Josephine was quiet for a long moment, studying my face as if searching for something. I want Adelaide to have a father who shows up, she said finally. Not someone who makes promises he can't keep. Not someone who prioritizes board meetings over dance recitals. Can you be that person, Griffin? Because if you can't, it's better to walk away now before she gets attached. The challenge in her words was clear. This was my one chance. If I failed Adelaide the way I'd failed Josephine, there would be no third chances. I've spent 15 years building a company, I said slowly, choosing each word carefully. It's been my entire world, my only focus. I told myself it was enough, that success and achievement filled whatever was missing. I convinced myself that the sacrifices were worth it. That being alone was just the price of greatness. I moved to sit in the chair across from her, leaning forward so she could see the truth in my eyes. But watching Adelaide in that lobby today, seeing her fierce determination to find me even when she was terrified, I realized something. I've been living half a life. Maybe less than half. I built an empire, but I have no one to share it with. I achieved every goal I set for myself, And it means nothing because there's no one who actually cares. Josephine's expression softened slightly, but wariness remained in her eyes. I can't promise I'll be perfect, I continued. I don't know how to be a father. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to say the wrong thing or miss important cues or not understand references because I wasn't there for the first 15 years. But I can promise I'll try. I can promise that she'll be my priority. That nothing, not Halstead Technologies, not investor meetings, not speaking engagements, not anything, will matter more than being present in her life. And when the company needs you? Josephine asked quietly. When there's a crisis that could cost billions. When investors are threatening to pull out. When your board demands your full attention. What happens to those promises then? The question was fair. It was the same question that had destroyed our marriage. I'd always chosen the company when it came down to it. Always found a way to justify putting Halstead Technologies first. Then I'll delegate, I said. I'll empower my executive team to handle what they're more than capable of handling. I'll use the technology I've spent 15 years developing to work remotely when I need to. I'll restructure my priorities and my schedule and my entire life if that's what it takes. I held her gaze. Josephine, I can't get back the years I missed. I can't undo the damage I caused. But I can be different moving forward. I can be the man I should have been 15 years ago. The man who understands that the most important things in life aren't measured in quarterly earnings or stock prices. Josephine studied me for a long moment. You've changed, she observed. Or maybe you're finally becoming who you always could have been. I hope so, I said quietly. She stood, moving to the window that looked out on the street. The setting sun cast her profile in warm light. Okay, she said finally. We'll try. But Griffin, if you hurt her, if you disappoint her the way you disappointed me, there won't be a second chance. Do you understand? I understand, I said. And if I do, you'll have every right to cut me out of both your lives forever. She turned back to face me. We'll start slow. You can come to Providence when you're able. Maybe Adelaide can visit Boston sometimes. We'll have dinners, we'll text, we'll build a relationship gradually instead of trying to force 15 years of connection into a few weeks. That makes sense, I agreed. But Josie, I want to do more than just visit. I want to be involved. School events, robotics competitions, piano recitals, whatever matters to her. I want to be present. A slight smile touched Josephine's lips. Then you'll need to clear your schedule. Adelaide has a robotics competition in 2 weeks. A piano recital in 3 weeks. And she's been asking to visit MIT's campus for months. If you're serious about being involved, those are the kinds of things that matter. Send me the dates, I said immediately. I'll be there for all of it. Josephine's smile widened slightly. We'll see. Actions matter more than words, Griffin. You taught me that, actually. During our marriage, you were always promising to be home for dinner, to take a weekend off, to prioritize us. The promises were beautiful. But you never followed through. The observation stung because it was true. I'd been full of good intentions and empty follow-through, always finding a reason why this deal or that crisis had to come first. This time will be different, I said. I hope so, Josephine replied. For Adelaide's sake. A door opened upstairs, and footsteps descended the stairs. Adelaide appeared in the doorway, trying and failing to look like she hadn't been eavesdropping. Are you done fighting? She asked. We weren't fighting, Josephine said. We were discussing arrangements. Am I still grounded? Absolutely. 1 month, minimum. And that's generous considering you lied to me, skipped out on school, took a train to Boston alone, and confronted a man you'd never met. He's not just a man, Adelaide protested. He's my father. Which you confirmed by breaking about 6 different rules, Josephine countered. So yes, grounded. 2 weeks of no internet except for homework. No robotics club except for the competition. No chess club. No coding class. Mom, that's harsh. You could have been kidnapped, Adelaide. You could have been hurt. You deliberately deceived me and put yourself in danger. Josephine's voice wavered slightly. Do you have any idea how terrified I was when I came home and you were gone? Adelaide's defiance crumbled. I'm sorry, Mom. I just needed to know. I needed to see him. I understand, Josephine said, her voice softening. But there are consequences for choices, even when the intentions are good. I'll accept whatever punishment you think is fair, I interjected. Adelaide came to find me. If anyone should face consequences, it's me for being unreachable in the first place. Both of them looked at me with surprise. You don't get to swoop in and play good cop, Josephine said firmly. Adelaide made her choices. She'll deal with the consequences. That's how parenting works. I nodded, chastened. You're right. I'm sorry. Adelaide was watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. You're staying for dinner, right? She asked me. I glanced at Josephine, uncertain. Chinese food, Josephine said after a moment's hesitation. It's Adelaide's comfort food after stressful days, and I think we've all earned some stress eating. You're welcome to stay if you want, Griffin. I'd like that very much, I said. The next hour was simultaneously awkward and surprisingly natural. We ordered enough Chinese food to feed 6 people. Adelaide set the table while Josephine pulled out plates and utensils. I stood uselessly in the kitchen, unsure where I fit in their established rhythms. You can grab glasses, Josephine said, gesturing to a cabinet. And there's iced tea in the fridge. It was such a simple, domestic instruction, but it made me feel oddly included. Like I was being invited into their world in small, manageable increments. Dinner conversation flowed in fits and starts. Adelaide asked questions about Halstead Technologies, about my life in Boston, about whether I'd ever wanted children. That last question hung heavy in the air. I thought I did, I answered honestly. When your mother and I were married, we talked about having a family someday, but I kept pushing it off. I wanted the company to be more established first. I wanted to feel more secure financially. I always had a reason to wait. And now? Adelaide pressed. Now I realize I was waiting for a perfect moment that doesn't exist, I said. I was so focused on building the right circumstances that I never stopped to consider what I was actually building toward. Josephine was quiet, her fingers tracing patterns on her water glass. I could see her processing my words, weighing them against 15 years of evidence to the contrary. What about you, Adelaide? I asked, shifting the focus. Tell me about robotics. What kind of projects are you working on? Her face lit up immediately, and for the next 20 minutes, she talked enthusiastically about autonomous navigation systems and machine learning algorithms. Her knowledge was impressive, far beyond what I'd expect from a 15-year-old. She spoke with passion and precision, explaining complex concepts with clarity. I found myself genuinely engaged, asking questions, offering insights from my own work in artificial intelligence. We fell into an easy back and forth, building on each other's ideas in a way that felt natural and right. You two are exactly alike, Josephine observed, a mix of amusement and exasperation in her voice. Both of you light up when you're talking about technology. Both of you use your hands when you're explaining things. Both of you get this intense focus where the rest of the world disappears. Adelaide grinned. Is that bad? Not bad, Josephine said. Just overwhelming for those of us who don't speak fluent engineering. You speak architecture, I pointed out. That's just as technical. It's different, Josephine insisted. Architecture is about people and spaces and how they interact. Your world is all algorithms and code. Architecture is absolutely about algorithms, Adelaide argued. Load-bearing calculations, spatial geometry, material physics. Mom, your work is basically applied mathematics. Traitor, Josephine said, but she was smiling. After dinner, Adelaide excused herself to finish homework, leaving Josephine and me alone with the dinner debris. We cleared the table in comfortable silence, falling into a rhythm that felt familiar despite the years apart. She really is extraordinary, I said, loading plates into the dishwasher. You've done an incredible job raising her, Josie. I had help, Josephine replied, scraping leftovers into containers. My sister, my parents, friends. It wasn't easy, but we managed. You shouldn't have had to do it alone, I said quietly. I should have been there. Yes, you should have, Josephine agreed. There was no anger in her voice, just acknowledgement of fact. But you weren't, and we can't change that. All we can do is move forward from here. I turned to face her fully, wiping my hands on a dish towel. I was a fool, Josie. 15 years ago, I was so consumed with proving myself, with becoming successful, that I couldn't see what I was sacrificing. Our marriage, our future, a daughter I didn't even know existed. I threw it all away because I thought building a company mattered more than building a life. Why? Josephine asked, turning to mirror my posture. Why was it never enough? I supported your dreams, Griffin. I worked my own job while you built Halstead Technologies from nothing. I understood late nights and missed dinners. But it was never enough for you. You always needed more. More hours, more focus, more sacrifice. And I was always what you were willing to sacrifice. The truth of her words settled over me like a heavy blanket. She was right. She'd been supportive, patient, understanding. And I'd taken that support and used it to justify pushing her further and further away. My father worked in a factory his entire life, I said finally, the words coming from a place I rarely accessed. 40 years of the same mindless work, coming home exhausted and bitter every single night. He used to tell me that he'd given up his dreams for family, that he could have been someone if he hadn't had responsibilities, that his potential died the day I was born. I leaned against the counter, the memories washing over me. I swore I'd never be him. I swore I'd achieve everything he couldn't, that I'd prove you could be successful and significant and important. But in running from becoming my father, I became something worse. At least he showed up. At least he was present, even if he was miserable. I was so busy proving I could have success that I abandoned everything else. Josephine was quiet for a moment, her amber eyes studying my face. Your father was wrong, you know, she said softly. He didn't give up his dreams for family. He gave up on his dreams and blamed his family for it. There's a difference. I know that now, I said. I just wish I'd understood it 15 years ago. Me too, Josephine replied. She moved to the sink, running water over the serving dishes. But we have now, Griffin. And Adelaide deserves better than two parents stuck in regrets about the past. Agreed, I said. So how do we do this? Logistically, I mean. I live in Boston. You're here in Providence. Adelaide has school and friends and a whole life. I don't want to disrupt that, but I also don't want to be a weekend visitor who shows up with expensive gifts and no real understanding of who she is. Josephine considered this, her fingers drumming on the counter in a gesture I remembered well. It meant she was thinking through options, weighing possibilities. We take it slow, she said finally. You come to Providence when you can. Maybe Adelaide visits Boston sometimes on weekends. We have dinners like tonight. We text. We build a relationship gradually instead of trying to compress 15 years of connection into a few weeks. That makes sense, I agreed. But I meant what I said earlier, Josie. I want to be involved. Really involved. Not just the fun stuff, but the ordinary stuff too. Homework help and driving her places and being there when she needs someone. Then you'll need to make significant changes to your life, Josephine said, her gaze direct and challenging. Because Adelaide's robotics competition is on a Wednesday afternoon. Her piano lessons are Thursday evenings. She has chess club on Tuesday mornings before school. Being involved means working around her schedule, not expecting her to work around yours. I'll make it work, I said. I'll restructure my calendar, delegate more to my executive team, work remotely when I need to. Whatever it takes. Josephine studied me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing my words against years of broken promises. We'll see, she said finally. Actions matter more than words, Griffin. Show me, show Adelaide, that you mean what you're saying. I will, I promised. Upstairs, a door opened. Footsteps crossed the hallway, and then Adelaide appeared at the kitchen entrance. I finished my calculus homework, she announced, and my history reading. Can I show Dad my robotics project before he leaves? The casual way she said Dad hit me square in the chest. She'd used the word earlier, but hearing it again, in this domestic context, made it feel real in a way nothing else had. Josephine glanced at me, a question in her eyes. I nodded. 20 minutes, Josephine said. It's a school night, and you need to be in bed by 10. Adelaide led me to a converted sunroom at the back of the house that had been transformed into a workspace. A large desk held multiple computer monitors. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books about engineering, robotics, quantum physics. A workbench in the corner was covered with circuit boards, tools, and what appeared to be a partially assembled robot. This is my space, Adelaide said, a note of pride in her voice. Mom gave me this room when I started getting serious about robotics. Said every engineer needs a proper lab. I looked around the room, taking in the careful organization, the evidence of serious work being done. This isn't a hobby space, I observed. This is professional-grade setup. I know what I'm doing, Adelaide said simply. Come look at this. She pulled up schematics on her computer, explaining the autonomous navigation system she was developing for the robotics competition. Her code was clean, efficient, sophisticated. I found myself genuinely impressed, asking technical questions, offering suggestions based on my own experience with machine learning. We lost track of time, falling into the kind of deep technical discussion I usually only had with my senior engineers. Adelaide's mind was sharp, making connections quickly, seeing implications and applications that took most people years of experience to recognize. You could work for Halstead Technologies right now, I said honestly. Your skills are better than some of the junior engineers on my team. Really? Adelaide's eyes lit up. Really? Though you should probably finish high school first. She laughed. Mom would kill me if I dropped out. Education is sacred in this house. Your mother is right about that, I said. But Adelaide, I'm serious. When you're ready, when you've finished school, and if you're interested, there's a place for you at Halstead. Internships, research positions, whatever you want to pursue. Thanks, Dad, she said, and again that word sent a jolt through my system. A knock on the doorframe made us both turn. Josephine stood there, a slight smile on her face. It's 10:15, she said. Time for Griffin to head back to Boston, and time for you to be in bed. 5 more minutes? Adelaide pleaded. Bed, Josephine said firmly. You can talk to your father another time. Adelaide sighed dramatically, but shut down her computer. She turned to me, suddenly uncertain. You're really coming to my robotics competition? I'll be there, I promised. Wouldn't miss it. She hugged me then, quick and impulsive. I froze for a moment, unprepared for the physical contact, then carefully hugged her back. She smelled like shampoo and Chinese food and possibility. When she pulled away, her eyes were bright. Good night, Dad. Good night, Adelaide. She disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with Josephine in the hallway. Thank you, I said quietly, for letting me stay. For giving me a chance. For not shutting me out when you had every right to. I'm not doing it for you, Josephine replied. I'm doing it for Adelaide. She deserves to know her father. I know, I said. But still, thank you. Josephine walked me to the door. On the porch, under the soft glow of the porch light, we stood awkwardly for a moment. I'll send you the schedule for Adelaide's activities, Josephine said. The competition, the recital, everything. You can decide what you're able to attend. I'll attend all of it, I said. We'll see, she replied, but there was less skepticism in her voice than before. I walked to my car, then turned back. Josephine was still standing on the porch, watching me. She looks like you, I called out. Adelaide. She has your smile. She has your stubbornness, Josephine called back. And your complete inability to admit when you're wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of things, I replied. I was wrong to let you go. I was wrong to shut you out. I was wrong about what matters in life. Josephine's expression softened. Good night, Griffin. Good night, Josie. The drive back to Boston felt different than the drive to Providence. I wasn't running away from a crisis or toward a confrontation. I was leaving behind something precious with the promise of returning. The city lights blurred past my windows as I processed everything that had happened in the span of a few hours. I had a daughter. A brilliant, fierce, extraordinary daughter who coded autonomous robots and dreamed of MIT. A daughter who'd been brave enough to seek me out when I'd been too cowardly to seek her. And Josephine. God, Josephine. She'd built a life without me, raised our daughter alone, created a home filled with love and warmth and purpose. She'd become everything I'd always known she could be, and she'd done it without any help from me. By the time I reached my penthouse, it was nearly midnight. The space felt cold and empty in a way I'd never noticed before. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Minimalist furniture in shades of gray and black. Not a single photograph on display. Not a book left casually on a table. Not a sign that an actual human being lived here rather than a very wealthy ghost. I thought about Adelaide's workspace, cluttered with projects and possibility. I thought about Josephine's house, every surface holding evidence of life being lived. My penthouse looked like a showroom, beautiful and soulless. Before I could second-guess myself, I called Michael Lane. My oldest friend and business partner answered on the third ring, his voice groggy. Griffin? It's midnight. What's wrong? I have a daughter, I said without preamble. Silence. Then what? I have a daughter. Her name is Adelaide. She's 15 years old. She showed up at the Tech Innovation Summit today and told me she's my daughter. And she is, Mike. She's mine. I need you to come over, Michael said, suddenly fully awake. I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to his word, Michael arrived at my penthouse 23 minutes later, looking rumpled in jeans and a sweatshirt. We'd been friends since college, two scholarship kids with big dreams and empty bank accounts. Michael was the only person who'd known me before the money, before the success. The only person who could speak to me with complete honesty. "Start from the beginning," he said, settling onto my couch. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about Frank interrupting my speech, about Adelaide in the lobby, about the birthmark and Josephine and the dinner in Providence, about 15 years of missing my daughter's life because I'd been too proud to let Josephine reach me. Michael listened without interruption, his expression shifting from shock to concern to something like sadness. "Jesus, Griffin," he said when I finished. "A daughter." "You have a daughter." "I have a daughter," I repeated, the words still feeling surreal. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to be her father," I said simply. "I'm going to show up for her competitions and recitals. I'm going to learn who she is. I'm going to be present in her life in all the ways I wasn't before." And Halstead Technologies? "I'll delegate more, restructure my schedule, work remotely when I need to." I met Michael's eyes. "Adelaide is my priority now. The company comes second." Michael leaned back, studying me. "In 20 years of friendship, I've never heard you say anything comes before Halstead." "That's because I've had my priorities wrong for 20 years, I said. "I built an empire, Mike. I achieved every goal I set for myself. And tonight, standing in that little house in Providence, watching my daughter show me her robotics project, I realized that none of it means anything. All the success, all the achievement, all the recognition, it's hollow without people to share it with." "You're really serious about this?" "I've never been more serious about anything in my life," I replied. "I missed 15 years. I'm not missing another day." Michael nodded slowly. "Then you're going to need to make some significant changes. Your schedule is insane, Griffin. You're in meetings from 7 in the morning until 8 at night most days. You travel constantly. You're on call for the board 24/7. "Then we change it," I said. "You've been telling me for years that I need to delegate more, to trust the executive team. This is my chance to actually do it." "Okay," Michael said. "I'll help. We'll restructure your role, redistribute responsibilities. But Griffin, you need to understand that this is going to be a massive shift. People are going to notice. The board is going to have questions." "Let them question," I replied. "My daughter is more important than the board's comfort level." Michael smiled then, the first genuine smile since he'd arrived. "Good. It's about damn time you figured out what actually matters." We talked for another hour, sketching out plans for how to restructure my role at Halstead Technologies. More authority to the executive team. Clearer boundaries around my time. A willingness to say no to commitments that conflicted with Adelaide's schedule. By the time Michael left, it was nearly 2 in the morning. I should have been exhausted, but I felt energized in a way I hadn't in years. I had purpose beyond quarterly earnings and product launches. I had a reason to be better, to become the man I should have been all along. I pulled out my phone and opened a new message to Josephine. "Thank you for tonight. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. Please send me Adelaide's schedule. All of it. I want to know everything about her life." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. To my surprise, 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "It's 2 a.m., her message read. "Why are you still awake?" "Couldn't sleep," I replied. "Too much to process." "Me too," she sent back. For a moment, we just existed in that shared digital space. Then she sent another message. "Her robotics competition is Wednesday the 15th at 3 p.m. Westfield High School. Piano recital is Saturday the 25th at 7 p.m. Providence Performing Arts Center. She has chess club Tuesday mornings at 7 a.m. before school. Robotics team meetings Wednesdays and Fridays after school. Piano lessons Thursdays at 6 p.m. I stared at the messages, absorbing every detail like it was critical business intelligence. Because it was more important than any business intelligence I'd ever received. "I'll be at the robotics competition," I typed. "And the piano recital. Can I take her to breakfast before chess club on Tuesday?" The dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. "You'd have to be here by 6:30 to get her to school by 7. "I'll be there, I promised." "We'll see," she replied. Then, "Good night, Griffin." "Good night, Josie." I set down my phone and looked around my empty penthouse. Tomorrow, I would start making changes. Not just to my schedule, but to my life. I'd lived 15 years in this sterile space, telling myself that success was enough. That achieve. It meant was its own reward, that I didn't need anyone else. But standing in Adelaide's workspace, seeing the evidence of her brilliant mind and passionate curiosity, I'd realized what I'd been missing. Not just a daughter, though that was profound enough, but connection, purpose beyond profit, a reason to be better than just successful. I had a lot to learn about being a father, a lot to prove to both Adelaide and Josephine, a lot of ways I would undoubtedly fail and have to try again. But for the first time in 15 years, I felt like I was building towards something that mattered. Not just a company, but a life. The next morning, I was in the office by 6:30, unusual even for me. I called an emergency meeting with my executive team for 7 a.m. They filed into the conference room, looking concerned. Emergency meetings usually meant a crisis. A major investor pulling out. A security breach. A hostile takeover attempt. They weren't prepared for what I actually had to say. I'm restructuring my role, I announced without preamble. Effective immediately, I'm delegating more operational authority to this team and taking a step back from day-to-day management. The silence was deafening. Sarah Chun, my CFO, spoke first. Is everything all right, Griffin? Are you ill? I'm fine, I assured them. Better than fine, actually. But I've realized that I've been doing this company and this team a disservice by micromanaging everything. You're all incredibly capable. It's time I trusted you to do your jobs without me hovering over every decision. Michael, who'd known this was coming, hid a smile behind his coffee cup. What prompted this? Asked David Park, the CTO. I took a breath, deciding that honesty was the best approach. I found out yesterday that I have a 15-year-old daughter I never knew existed. She lives in Providence, and I'm going to be an active, present father in her life, which means I need to create space in my schedule for what actually matters. The room erupted in shocked congratulations. Questions flew fast. I answered what I could, keeping the details vague but the commitment clear. Here's what this means practically, I continued, bringing the focus back to business. Sarah, you'll have final authority on all financial decisions under $50 million. David, you greenlight all technology development and implementation. Michael, you handle investor relations and board communications. I'll still be involved in major strategic decisions, and I'm available for genuine emergencies, but the day-to-day operations are yours. That's a significant shift, Sarah said carefully. It is, I agreed. And it's long overdue. I hired brilliant people and then didn't let them do their jobs. That changes now. We spent the next 2 hours working through the details. What decisions required my input? What could be handled independently? How to communicate this restructuring to the board and investors without causing panic. By 9:30, we had a plan. My calendar, which had been blocked solid for the next 6 months, suddenly had breathing room. Wednesdays and Fridays after 2 p.m. were now protected. Tuesday mornings before 9. Weekends were completely clear unless there was a genuine crisis. This is going to take some adjustment, Michael said after the others had left. For everyone, but especially for you. You've been in control of every detail for 15 years. I know, I said, but Adelaide matters more than my control issues. Good, Michael replied. Hold on to that when the first crisis hits and your instinct is to take over. The following Tuesday, I was parked outside Josephine's house at 6:20 in the morning. The neighborhood was quiet, lights just beginning to appear in windows as people started their days. I'd brought coffee from Adelaide's favorite place, information I'd extracted from Josephine via text, and bagels. At 6:28, the front door opened. Adelaide emerged, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking surprised to see me there. You actually came, she said, climbing into the passenger seat. I said I would, I replied, handing her a coffee. Caramel latte with extra foam, right? Her face lit up. That's exactly right. How did you know? I have my sources, I said, not mentioning the 3 texts it had taken to get Josephine to reveal this information. We drove to her school in comfortable silence, Adelaide sipping her coffee and looking out the window. As we pulled into the parking lot, she turned to me. You know you don't have to do this, right? Come to chess club and stuff. I know you're busy. I want to, I said honestly. I missed 15 years, Adelaide. I'm not missing anything else if I can help it. Her smile was worth every rearranged meeting, every delegated responsibility, every change I'd made to my carefully controlled life. Okay, she said. But fair warning, chess club is pretty nerdy. Like, extremely nerdy. I think I can handle it, I assured her. I spent the next hour watching my daughter demolish opponents twice her age in chess matches. She played with fierce concentration, several moves ahead, her strategy unfolding with elegant precision. When she won her third game in a row, she looked over at me with a grin, and I felt pride swell in my chest. This was what I'd been missing. Not the big moments, though those mattered too, but these ordinary mornings. This quiet pride in watching my daughter excel. This simple presence that required nothing but my attention and time. After chess club, I drove her home. Josephine was leaving for work, dressed in professional attire, portfolio case in hand. "How was chess club?" she asked Adelaide. "I won all 3 games," Adelaide reported proudly. "And Dad brought me coffee from Bennett's." Josephine's eyebrows rose slightly, meeting my eyes over Adelaide's head. "You remembered Bennett's?" "I did my research," I admitted. A small smile tugged at her lips. "Well, thank you for taking her." "My pleasure," I said honestly. "Same time next week?" "If your schedule allows," Josephine replied, and I heard the test in her words. She was waiting for me to cancel, to prove that I was the same man who'd always put work first. "My schedule allows," I said firmly. "I'll be here every Tuesday at 6:30 if Adelaide wants me to be." "I want you to be," Adelaide said immediately. "Then it's a date," I confirmed. The following 2 weeks became a crash course in fatherhood. I drove to Providence 4 times, attending Adelaide's robotics team meetings, helping her debug code for her competition robot, learning the names of her teammates and teachers. I rearranged board meetings and declined speaking engagements. I worked remotely more in those 2 weeks than I had in the previous 2 years. My executive team handled it better than I expected. Sarah actually seemed relieved to have more autonomy. David thrived with the freedom to make technology decisions without waiting for my approval. The company didn't collapse without my constant oversight. If anything, it ran more smoothly. But the board noticed. "Griffin, we need to discuss your recent absences," Richard Thornton said during our weekly call. He was the board chairman, a venture capitalist who'd been with Halstead Technologies since the Series B funding round. "You've missed 3 meetings in 2 weeks. You declined the Wall Street Journal interview. You're not responding to emails within your usual time frame. I've delegated operational authority to my executive team," I explained calmly. "They're more than capable of handling day-to-day decisions. I'm focusing my energy on strategic vision and high-level guidance." "That's a significant departure from your normal hands-on approach," another board member chimed in. "Is there something we should be concerned about?" I took a breath, deciding that partial honesty was the best approach. I've realized that I was micromanaging talented people instead of empowering them. This restructuring allows them to excel, while I focus on what actually requires my specific expertise. It wasn't the whole truth. I didn't mention Adelaide or Josephine or the fact that I was rebuilding a family I'd never known I had. That was personal, and the board didn't need to know the details of my private life. "We'll be monitoring this closely," Richard said, his tone carrying a warning. "Halstead Technologies' success has been built on your vision and leadership. Any significant changes to that formula concern us." "Understood," I replied. "But I can assure you, the company is in excellent hands." After the call ended, I sat in my office, looking out over Boston. A year ago, that conversation would have sent me into crisis mode. I would have immediately reversed course, reasserted control, proved that I was indispensable. But now, with Adelaide's robotics competition 2 days away, the board's concerns felt distant and manageable. My phone buzzed with a text from Adelaide. "Final test run of the robot. We're having some navigation issues. Any chance you can video call?" I smiled and immediately initiated a video call. Adelaide's face appeared, the robotics workshop visible behind her. "Show me the problem," I said. For the next 40 minutes, we troubleshot the navigation algorithm together. Adelaide would run tests. I'd suggest modifications to the code. We'd iterate until the robot moved with smooth precision. Her teammates gathered around, initially skeptical of the CEO on the phone, but gradually warming up as my suggestions actually worked. "That's it," Adelaide said triumphantly as the robot completed a perfect navigation sequence. "Dad, you're a genius." "You're the genius," I corrected. "I just have more experience debugging algorithms." After we hung up, I sat back in my chair, feeling something unfamiliar. Contentment. Not the rushed satisfaction of closing a deal or the competitive thrill of beating a rival company to market, but deep, genuine contentment that came from helping my daughter solve a problem. Michael knocked on my door frame. "You're smiling," he observed. "That's weird. I just helped Adelaide fix her competition robot." "You're turning into a regular dad," Michael said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "It's actually kind of nice to see." "It feels nice," I admitted. "Different, but nice." "The board is getting nervous," Michael said, shifting to business. "Richard called me after your meeting. Wanted to know if there was something going on they should be aware of." "What did you tell him?" "That you were making long overdue changes to empower your executive team. That Halstead Technologies is stronger when leadership is distributed rather than concentrated in one person." Michael paused. "I didn't mention Adelaide." "Thank you," I said. "I'll tell them eventually. But right now, this is private." "Agreed." Michael studied me for a moment. "You know, I've known you for 20 years, Griffin. I've seen you close billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. I've seen you pitch investors, negotiate acquisitions, navigate corporate warfare. But I've never seen you this happy." "I'm building something that matters," I said simply. "Not just a company. A relationship with my daughter. Maybe even a second chance with Josephine." "How is that going?" "With Josephine?" I shrugged. "Carefully. We're focused on Adelaide right now. But there's something still there, Mike. When we're in the same room, when we're talking, I remember why I fell in love with her in the first place." "Just don't rush it," Michael advised. "You have a tendency to go all in on things. Take it slow." "That seems to be everyone's advice," I said. "But you're right. Slow is good." Wednesday the 15th arrived with perfect autumn weather. I drove to Providence early, meeting Josephine and Adelaide at their house before heading to Westfield High School together. The decision to ride together had been Adelaide's idea, and I could see Josephine's hesitation before she agreed. The high school gymnasium had been transformed into a robotics arena. Courses laid out with obstacles and challenges. Teams from across the state setting up their robots, making last-minute adjustments. The energy was electric. Teenage engineers focused with the intensity of seasoned professionals. Adelaide's team, the Providence Pioneers, had a designated area in the corner. Her teammates greeted me with a mix of awe and curiosity. Apparently, Adelaide had mentioned that her father was Griffin Halstead, and now they were looking at me like I might judge their engineering skills. "Relax," I told them with a smile. "I'm just here as Adelaide's dad, not as a CEO." "That's exactly what a CEO would say," one of her teammates replied, and everyone laughed. Josephine and I found seats in the bleachers, joining other parents who'd taken time off work for this competition. I'd canceled 2 meetings and a conference call to be here. Old Griffin would have sent a gift and an apology. New Griffin wouldn't have missed it for anything. "Nervous?" Josephine asked as the competition began. "Terrified," I admitted. "Is this normal? This level of anxiety watching your child compete?" "Completely normal," she said with a smile. "Welcome to parenting." We watched team after team send their robots through the course. Some succeeded brilliantly. Others crashed spectacularly. Adelaide sat with her team, making notes, adjusting their strategy based on what other robots were doing. "She's so focused," I observed. "She gets that from you," Josephine said. "That ability to analyze a situation and adapt in real time." I panic and second-guess myself. "You and Adelaide just process and pivot." "You don't give yourself enough credit," I replied. "Adelaide's creativity, her ability to see elegant solutions to complex problems, that's all you." Josephine glanced at me, surprise flickering across her face. "You remember that about me?" "I remember everything about you," I said quietly. "I just spent 15 years pretending I didn't." Before Josephine could respond, the announcer called Adelaide's team. We both leaned forward, tension crackling between us that had nothing to do with the competition. Adelaide and her teammates positioned their robot at the starting line. The buzzer sounded. The robot moved forward with smooth precision, navigating obstacles, collecting objects, completing tasks with elegant efficiency. Adelaide watched with absolute concentration, her teammates calling out encouragement. The robot encountered a tricky navigation point, the same spot where several other robots had failed. It hesitated, sensors processing, then adjusted its path with a fluid movement that drew appreciative murmurs from the crowd. "That's the algorithm we debugged on Monday," I said to Josephine. "She figured out how to make the sensors more responsive." The robot completed the course with impressive speed. The scoreboard lit up with their time. Second place overall, ahead of teams from much larger schools with better funding. Adelaide jumped up, her teammates surrounding her in celebration. She looked up at the bleachers, found us, and her smile was radiant. Josephine and I both stood, applauding. Around us, other parents clapped politely. But we were clapping for our daughter, this extraordinary girl who'd brought us back together without even trying. After the awards ceremony, Adelaide joined us with her silver medal, her face flushed with excitement and pride. "Second place," she said, slightly breathless. "We got second place at regionals." "You were amazing," I said, pulling her into a hug. "That navigation sequence was brilliant." "Thanks, Dad." She pulled back, looking between me and Josephine. "Can we get pizza to celebrate? Both of you?" Josephine and I exchanged glances. We'd been carefully avoiding situations that felt too much like family activities, keeping things focused on Adelaide rather than us. But the hope in Adelaide's eyes made the decision easy. "Pizza sounds perfect," Josephine said. The pizza place was loud and crowded, filled with families celebrating various afternoon activities. We squeezed into a booth, Adelaide between us, still buzzing with excitement about the competition. "Did you see when the robot almost knocked over the barrier?" she asked. I thought we were done for, but the stabilization code held. "I was holding my breath during that part," I admitted. "But you'd programmed in enough redundancy that it recovered perfectly." "Next competition is states," Adelaide said. "That's in 6 weeks. We'll need to optimize the speed without sacrificing accuracy." 6 weeks, I repeated, already mentally adjusting my calendar. "I'll be there." "You don't have to come to every competition," Adelaide said, though her tone suggested she very much wanted me to. "I want to," I assured her. "These are important to you, which makes them important to me." Josephine was quiet, watching our interaction with an unreadable expression. When Adelaide excused herself to the bathroom, she turned to me. "You're really doing this," she said. "Showing up, being present. I keep waiting for you to cancel, to have some urgent meeting that takes priority. But you keep showing up." "I told you I would," I replied. "You told me a lot of things 15 years ago too," Josephine said, but there was less bite in her words than before. "I'm just surprised you're actually following through." "I've spent 15 years living for Halstead Technologies," I said, measuring my worth in stock prices and market share. And in all that time, I was never as happy as I've been these past 2 weeks, watching Adelaide's chess matches and debugging her code, and sitting in this loud pizza place celebrating her success. Josephine's expression softened. "You've changed, Griffin. Or maybe you're finally becoming who you were always meant to be. Better late than never?" I offered. "We'll see," she said, but she was smiling. Adelaide returned, sliding back into the booth. "So what are you guys talking about?" "You," Josephine said. "Always you." "I'm an excellent topic of conversation," Adelaide replied with mock seriousness. "Intelligent, accomplished, modest." "So modest," I agreed, and we all laughed. The ease of it surprised me. How naturally we'd fallen into this rhythm. How right it felt to be sitting in this booth with Josephine and Adelaide, celebrating something that had nothing to do with business or profit margins. This was what I'd been missing. Not just Adelaide, though she was the catalyst, but this sense of connection, of being part of something bigger than myself. Over the next few weeks, I settled into a routine that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. Tuesday mornings with Adelaide before chess club. Wednesday afternoons at robotics team meetings. Friday evenings having dinner with Adelaide and Josephine. Weekend visits to Providence that sometimes included museum trips or walks along the river. My presence in Adelaide's life was no longer tentative or uncertain. I was becoming a fixture, someone she could count on. And slowly, carefully, Josephine was allowing me further into their world. 3 weeks after the robotics competition, Adelaide had her piano recital. I arrived at the Providence Performing Arts Center an hour early, nervous in a way I never was before business presentations. This was different. This mattered more. Josephine found me in the lobby, elegant in a deep blue dress that made her amber eyes even more striking. "You're early," she observed. "I didn't want to risk being late," I admitted. "Traffic, parking, I built an extra time." She smiled. "That's very dad of you." We found seats in the 3rd row, close enough to see Adelaide clearly when she took the stage. The recital featured students of all ages, from tiny children who could barely reach the pedals to high school seniors preparing for conservatory auditions. When Adelaide finally took the stage, I felt my breath catch. She looked so grown up in her black dress, her hair styled in elegant waves. So different from the defiant teenager who'd confronted me in a hotel lobby just a few weeks ago. She's beautiful, I whispered to Josephine. She is, Josephine agreed, her voice thick with emotion. She looks so much like my mother at that age. Adelaide settled at the piano, her hands poised over the keys. Then she began to play, and the world fell away. I didn't know the piece. Josephine whispered that it was Chopin, one of the more challenging compositions Adelaide had tackled. But I didn't need to know the technical details to understand that my daughter was gifted. Her fingers moved with precise grace. The music filled the auditorium with something between joy and melancholy, each note deliberate and perfect. I felt my throat tighten with emotion I hadn't expected. This was what I'd missed. Not just the big moments, but all of them. The years of practice that led to this performance. The frustration and triumph of mastering difficult passages. The quiet pride of watching your child create something beautiful. When Adelaide finished, the applause was thunderous. She stood, bowed, her eyes scanning the audience until she found us. The smile that lit up her face when she saw both her parents together made everything worth it. Every rearranged meeting, every declined invitation, every choice to put her first. After the recital, we waited in the lobby while Adelaide changed and gathered her things. Other parents congratulated their children, families grouping together for photos and celebration. She was the best one, I said to Josephine. I'm not just saying that because she's my daughter. She was genuinely the most talented performer tonight. I agree, Josephine said, though I might be slightly biased too. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Josephine said, quietly, "Thank you for being here, Griffin. It means everything to her. Having both of us here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be," I replied honestly. Josephine looked at me, really looked at me, her amber eyes searching my face. "I've been thinking," she said slowly. "After Adelaide goes home tonight with my sister, she's having a sleepover. Would you maybe want to have dinner? Just the two of us?" My heart rate kicked up in a way it never did during investor pitches. "Are you asking me on a date, Josie?" "I'm asking if you'd like to have a conversation that doesn't revolve entirely around co-parenting," she clarified. "Dinner. Adults talking. We can call it whatever you want." "I'd love to," I said. "I'd absolutely love to." Adelaide emerged from backstage, still glowing from her performance. She hugged us both, accepted our praise with gracious humility, then revealed that she'd already arranged to spend the night at her aunt's house. "You knew about this," I said, looking between Adelaide and Josephine. "I may have suggested that you two could use some time to talk," Adelaide admitted with zero shame. "You know, without me around to make things weird." "You're a meddler," Josephine said, but she was smiling. "I'm a facilitator," Adelaide corrected. "There's a difference." After Adelaide left with Josephine's sister, Josephine and I stood in the parking lot, suddenly awkward without our buffer. "There's a good Italian place nearby," Josephine said. "Small, quiet. We won't run into anyone we know." "Sounds perfect," I replied. The restaurant was intimate, candles on tables, soft music playing. We were seated in a corner booth, menus placed before us, wine poured. And then it was just us, facing each other across the table with 15 years of history between us. "This is strange," Josephine said after the waiter left. "Being here with you like this. Strange good or strange bad?" I asked. "Strange uncertain," she replied. "I spent so many years convinced I was over you, that I'd moved on and built a life that didn't include you. And then Adelaide brought you back, and I realized I'd just gotten very good at pretending. I never stopped loving you," I said quietly, even when I was too stubborn and proud to admit it. Even when I convinced myself that the company mattered more. You were always there, Josie. In the back of my mind, in every empty room of my penthouse, in every moment I tried to convince myself I was happy alone. Josephine's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Then why? Why did you let us fall apart? Why did you choose the company over us?" I leaned back, the question I'd been asking myself for weeks demanding an honest answer. "My father," I began slowly, "worked in a factory his entire life. 40 years of the same job, coming home exhausted and bitter every night. He used to tell me that he'd sacrificed everything for family, that he could have been someone important, done something significant, if he hadn't had responsibilities." I paused, the memories still painful after all these years. He looked at me sometimes with this resentment, like I was the reason his dreams died. And I swore I would never be him. I swore I would achieve everything he couldn't. That I would prove you could be successful and significant without sacrificing your potential. But in running from becoming your father, you became something else, Josephine said softly. Someone who sacrificed relationships for success. Exactly, I admitted. I was so terrified of ending up bitter and resentful like him that I went to the opposite extreme. I prioritized achievement above everything else. And I lost you in the process. I lost Adelaide before I even knew she existed. Your father was wrong, Josephine said, reaching across the table to take my hand. He didn't sacrifice his dreams for family. He gave up on his dreams and blamed his family for his own choices. There's a difference, Griffin. A huge difference. I know that now, I said, my fingers intertwining with hers. I just wish I'd understood it 15 years ago. I wish I'd realized that I could have both. That being a husband and father didn't mean giving up on ambition. It just meant having the right priorities. We sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped across the table. Then Josephine said, "Tell me about your life these past 15 years. Not the business success. I can read about that in Forbes. The real stuff. Were you happy?" Honestly, I thought I was. I had convinced myself that achievement was enough. That being recognized as a tech visionary, building a $70 billion company, that was happiness. But looking back now, I was just busy. Busy enough that I didn't have to think about how empty my life actually was. I met her eyes. I lived in this beautiful penthouse overlooking the harbor. I had everything money could buy. And every night, I came home to silence. No one to share my victories with. No one to comfort me during setbacks. Just me and my success, which turned out to be a very cold companion. What about relationships? Josephine asked carefully. In 15 years, there must have been someone. No one serious, I admitted. A few dates here and there, usually set up by well-meaning friends or business associates. But I always found reasons why they weren't right. Too demanding of my time. Not understanding enough of my work schedule. Not ambitious enough or too ambitious. The truth is, they weren't you. Josephine looked down at our joined hands. I dated too, she said quietly. A couple of relationships that lasted a few months each. Good men who wanted to be part of Adelaide's life, who would have been stable stepfathers. But I always found reasons to end it. And the real reason was that they weren't you. We looked at each other across the table, the weight of 15 years of missed chances hanging between us. So where does that leave us? I asked. I don't know, Josephine admitted. I know that I've watched you these past few weeks with Adelaide, and I've seen real change. Not just words or promises, but actual different choices. You show up, Griffin. You rearrange your schedule. You put her first. That's not the man I divorced. I'm trying to be better, I said. Trying to be the man I should have been all along. I can see that, Josephine said. And it terrifies me. Why? Because I'm starting to believe in you again, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm starting to think that maybe we could have a second chance. And that scares me more than anything, because I don't know if I could survive losing you again. I tightened my grip on her hand. You won't lose me, Josie. Not this time. I've learned what matters. I've learned that no amount of success means anything if I don't have people I love to share it with. The waiter arrived with our food, and we reluctantly released hands. We ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about building her interior design business, about the satisfaction of creating beautiful spaces for her clients. I told her about the loneliness of success, about how every achievement felt hollow without someone to celebrate with. Dessert arrived, and with it, a shift in the conversation. Adelaide's been asking about us, Josephine said. Not directly, but in that way teenagers do. Questions about what we were like when we were married. Whether we were happy. Why we got divorced. What did you tell her? The truth. That we were young and ambitious and had different priorities. That we loved each other but couldn't figure out how to build a life together. That sometimes love isn't enough if you can't compromise. And what did she say? She asked if people ever got second chances. If couples who'd failed the first time could succeed the second time around. I smiled. Our daughter is not subtle. Not even a little bit, Josephine agreed. She wants us back together, Griffin. She's wanted it since the moment she found out about you. What do you want? I asked. Josephine took a deep breath. I want to take this slowly. I want to rebuild trust. I want to see if the changes you've made are sustainable or if you'll revert to old patterns when the novelty wears off. That's fair, I said. But I also want, she paused, meeting my eyes, to see if we can be more than co-parents. If we can rebuild what we had, or build something new entirely. Something better than before. I reached across the table again, taking both her hands in mine. Josephine Laurent, would you give me the honor of dating you? Of taking you to dinner, and walking with you, and getting to know you again as the woman you are now. Not just the woman I remember? She smiled, tears sliding down her cheeks. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll date you, Griffin Halstead. But we're doing this right this time. Real dates. Real conversations. Really getting to know each other. I can do that, I promised. I've waited 15 years. I can be patient. Good, she said. Because I'm worth waiting for. You absolutely are, I agreed. We left the restaurant hand in hand, stepping out into the cool autumn night. Josephine shivered slightly, and without thinking, I shrugged off my jacket and draped it around her shoulders. She looked up at me, surprise and warmth in her eyes. Some things you don't forget, I said. Some things, she agreed softly. I walked her to her car, both of us reluctant for the evening to end. At her door, we stood facing each other, the question of what came next hanging between us. Can I kiss you? I asked, the words feeling both familiar and terrifyingly new. Not yet, Josephine said gently. I'm not ready for that yet, Griffin. I need more time. I understand, I said, though disappointment flickered through me. We're taking it slow. Thank you for understanding, she said. Then she reached up and kissed my cheek, her lips warm against my skin. Good night, Griffin. Good night, Josie. I watched her drive away, my hand touching my cheek where her lips had been, feeling like a teenager after a first date. My phone buzzed with a text from Adelaide. How did it go? I smiled and typed back. Your mother agreed to date me. We're taking it slow. 3 dots appeared, then yes. Finally. Told you my plan would work. Your plan? I wrote. Obviously. Why do you think I arranged the sleepover? You two needed time alone. You're a meddler, I sent. I'm a facilitator, she corrected. Now go home and plan your next date. Mom likes museums and bookstores. And she's allergic to lilies but loves tulips. You're welcome. I laughed, grateful for my brilliant, scheming daughter. The next 6 months passed in a blur of carefully balanced priorities. I restructured my role at Halstead Technologies even further, delegating operational authority to my executive team while maintaining strategic oversight. The board was initially resistant, but when quarterly earnings came in strong and employee satisfaction scores actually improved with more distributed leadership, their concerns faded. I drove to Providence 3 times a week. Tuesday mornings for chess club, Wednesdays for robotics, Fridays for family dinner. And gradually, one of those weekly visits became a date with Josephine. We went to art museums and discussed her design philosophy. We browsed bookstores and debated our favorite authors. We took long walks along the Providence River and talked about everything from politics to philosophy. We rebuilt our friendship first, establishing a foundation of mutual respect and genuine enjoyment of each other's company. Adelaide watched our courtship with barely concealed glee, offering unsolicited advice and creating opportunities for us to spend time alone. She was, as Josephine frequently reminded her, absolutely shameless in her matchmaking efforts. But she was also right. Josephine and I were falling in love again. Or maybe we were falling in love for the first time as the people we'd actually become rather than who we'd been at 25. 4 months after our first date, Josephine appeared at my office at Halstead Technologies. My assistant showed her in, looking slightly starstruck. Josephine's interior design firm had developed a significant reputation, and having her in the building was causing excited whispers. This is a surprise, I said, standing to greet her. Not that I'm complaining, but you've never come to my office before. I'm here on business, Josephine said, setting a portfolio case on my desk. I'm pitching for the interior design contract on your new headquarters building. I sat back down, surprise flickering through me. You're bidding on the Halstead contract? That's a $60 million project. I'm aware, she said coolly, and my firm is qualified to handle it. I'm not asking for favoritism, Griffin. I'm asking to be considered fairly alongside the other bidders. Of course, I said immediately. But Josie, you know that if you win, people will assume I gave you the contract because we're dating. I'm aware of that too, she said. But my work speaks for itself. If you choose my firm, it will be because we're the best option, not because of Adelaide or our relationship. She opened the portfolio, revealing designs that took my breath away. She'd captured exactly what I'd struggled to articulate to the other design firms. Spaces that inspired creativity and collaboration. Sustainable materials integrated with cutting-edge technology. Functionality and beauty in perfect balance. These are incredible, I said honestly, studying each rendering. How did you know exactly what I was looking for? Because I know you, Griffin, she said simply. I know you want spaces that reflect Halstead's innovative brand, while also feeling human and welcoming. I know you care about sustainability, but won't sacrifice efficiency for it. I was married to you. I understand how your mind works. I looked up from the designs. This puts me in a difficult position. Why? Because these are genuinely the best designs I've seen. But if I choose your firm, everyone will assume it's nepotism. Then don't choose my firm, Josephine said, meeting my gaze directly. Choose the best design. If that happens to be mine, you can manage the optics. That's what CEOs do. I laughed despite myself. When did you become so ruthless? When I spent 15 years building a business as a single mother, she replied. I learned to fight for what I'm worth. And Griffin, I'm worth this contract. My firm is the right choice for this project. You're absolutely right, I said. About everything. I'll give you the contract. Not because we're dating, not because of Adelaide. Because you're the best. Thank you, Josephine said, professional satisfaction evident in her expression. There is one condition, though, I added. She raised an eyebrow. What condition? That you'll also agree to have dinner with me tomorrow night. Just the two of us. I have something I want to ask you. Interest flickered in her amber eyes. This sounds serious. It might be, I admitted. Will you come? Yes, she said. I'll come. After she left, I sat at my desk, the designs spread before me, and made a decision. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the small velvet box I'd been carrying for the past month. Inside was a ring unlike the flashy diamond I'd given her during our first marriage. This was a work of art. Intertwined bands of platinum and gold set with sapphires that matched Adelaide's eyes. Our eyes. I'd been waiting for the right moment. Tomorrow night felt perfect. The next evening, I picked Josephine up from her house. Adelaide was conveniently spending the night at a friend's house, another not-so-subtle bit of facilitation from our meddling daughter. Josephine looked stunning in a simple green dress that brought out the amber in her eyes. I'd chosen a small French restaurant, intimate and quiet, where we could talk without being overheard or recognized. Over wine and excellent food, we talked about the headquarters project, about Adelaide's upcoming state robotics competition, about everything except what I actually wanted to discuss. I was nervous in a way I never was during business negotiations. You're fidgeting, Josephine observed as dessert arrived. You never fidget. What's going on? I have something I want to talk to you about, I said. Something important. Okay, she said carefully. I'm listening. I took a deep breath. We've been dating for 4 months now. Before that, I spent 2 months proving to you that I could be the father Adelaide deserves. And for the past 6 months, I've been restructuring my entire life to accommodate what actually matters. Josephine nodded, watching me with those perceptive amber eyes. And in all that time, I've learned something, I continued. I've learned that I was wrong about almost everything. Wrong about what success means. Wrong about what I needed to be happy. Wrong about thinking I could build a meaningful life alone. I reached across the table, taking her hands. But I was right about one thing. I was right when I fell in love with you 20 years ago. I was just too young and stupid to appreciate what I had. Too focused on proving myself to realize that you were the best thing that ever happened to me. Griffin, Josephine said softly. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, I said. I'm not even asking yet. I just want you to know where I stand. I'm all in, Josie. With Adelaide, with you, with building a life together. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to celebrate Adelaide's achievements together. I want to grow old with you and watch our daughter change the world. What are you saying? Josephine asked, though her eyes suggested she already knew. I'm saying that I love you, that I want to marry you again, not because we have a daughter together, but because you're the person I want to share my life with. I pulled out the ring box, opening it to reveal the sapphire ring. I'm saying that I'm going to ask you to marry me, but I'm not asking tonight because I want you to have time to think about it. Time to be sure. Tears streamed down Josephine's face as she looked at the ring. It's beautiful, she whispered. The sapphires match Adelaide's eyes, I said. Our eyes. I wanted you to have something that represented our family, not just the two of us. Josephine looked up at me, emotion raw on her face. Ask me now. What? Ask me now, Griffin. Don't wait. I've had 15 years to think about this. I don't need more time. My heart hammered in my chest. Are you sure? I'm sure, she said. Ask me. I came around the table, kneeling beside her chair. Josephine Laurent, will you marry me? Not because we're trying to recapture what we had before, but because we've built something new, something better. Will you give me the honor of being your husband, of raising Adelaide together, of building a life that honors both our dreams? Yes, Josephine said, pulling me up to kiss me for the first time in 15 years. Yes, I'll marry you, Griffin. I'll marry you because I love you, because I believe in the man you've become, because I want to build a future with you. I slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like we fit perfectly now, after all the growing and changing and learning. We should tell Adelaide, Josephine said when we finally came up for air. She's going to be insufferable, I warned. She's going to take credit for all of this. She deserves to, Josephine said with a laugh. None of this would have happened without her. We drove to Josephine's sister's house, where Adelaide was allegedly watching movies with her cousin. When we walked in holding hands, Adelaide took one look at the ring on her mother's finger and screamed. You're engaged. She shrieked. Oh my God, you're actually engaged. We are, Josephine confirmed, laughing as Adelaide threw her arms around both of us. I told you my plan would work, Adelaide said. I told you that if you just spent time together, you'd remember why you fell in love in the first place. Your plan? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Adelaide, what did you do? Josephine asked suspiciously. Adelaide grinned, utterly unrepentant. I may have orchestrated this entire thing. Finding Dad at the hotel. Making sure you two had to co-parent. Suggesting dinners and sleepovers. I've been playing matchmaker this whole time. You manipulative little genius, I said, pulling her into a hug. I get it from both of you, she replied happily. Mom's strategic planning skills and Dad's ruthless execution. We spent the next hour at Josephine's sister's house, celebrating with family, answering excited questions about wedding plans. Adelaide had opinions on everything, naturally. Small ceremony. Immediate family only. She wanted to be the best woman, as promised months ago. Later, driving back to Josephine's house with Adelaide asleep in the back seat, I reached over and took Josephine's hand. I can't believe this is real, I said quietly. It's real, she assured me. We're really doing this. Building a life together. All three of us. I looked in the rearview mirror at Adelaide, our brilliant, brave daughter who'd taken a train to Boston to find her father. Who'd refused to accept that we were broken beyond repair. Who'd believed in second chances when neither of her parents did. She saved us, I said. She did, Josephine agreed. But you saved yourself, Griffin. You made the choice to change. To prioritize differently. To become the man you needed to be. We both did, I corrected. You built an incredible life for Adelaide. You showed me what strength and resilience actually look like. You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. You deserved it, Josephine said softly. Everyone deserves a chance to become better. 6 months later, I stood in the central atrium of the new Halstead Technologies headquarters, surrounded by spaces that Josephine's firm had brought to life. Natural light streamed through the innovative skylight system she'd designed. Sustainable materials created warmth and beauty. Every detail reflected our collaborative vision, the perfect marriage of technology and human-centered design. Tomorrow, we'd give the board a tour. But today it was just us. Josephine walked through the space with professional satisfaction, checking details, adjusting small elements. What do you think? She asked, joining me in the center of the atrium. It's perfect, I said honestly. Better than I imagined. Good, she said, consulting her tablet. Because the board is going to love it, and you're going to get so many compliments on your choice of design firm. Which I will graciously accept, while directing all credit to the brilliant designer, I replied, pulling her close. Who also happens to be my fiancée and the mother of my extraordinary daughter. Flattery will get you everywhere, she teased. My phone buzzed with a text from Adelaide. Don't forget, robotics tournament tomorrow at 9 a.m. You better both be there. I showed the message to Josephine, who laughed. She's so bossy. She gets that from you, I said. Nice try, but that's definitely your trait. We argued playfully about Adelaide's various inherited characteristics, as we walked to the car. The banter felt easy, natural, the kind of comfortable intimacy that came from really knowing someone. At home, a home we now shared after Josephine and Adelaide moved into my house 3 months ago, we found our daughter in her workshop. She'd transformed one of the spare rooms into a proper engineering lab, and the space was always filled with projects in various states of completion. "How's the robot coming?" I asked, leaning against the door frame. "Almost ready," Adelaide replied without looking up from her coding. "I optimized the navigation algorithms. We should be competitive at states." "You're going to crush it," I said confidently. "Obviously," she replied with a grin. "I have good genes." Josephine appeared beside me, slipping her hand into mine. "Bedtime, sweetheart. Big day tomorrow. 5 more minutes?" Adelaide pleaded. "Bed," Josephine said firmly. "You can finalize everything in the morning." Adelaide sighed dramatically, but saved her work and shut down her computer. As she passed us in the doorway, she paused. "You know I love you both, right?" she said. "Like, even when I'm being a pain about wedding planning or nagging you about my schedule. I really love you." "We love you too," Josephine said, pulling her into a hug. "More than anything in the world." "Even more than robotics?" Adelaide asked. "Even more than robotics," I confirmed, joining the hug. "Though it's a close call." Adelaide laughed and headed upstairs to bed. Josephine and I stood in the hallway of our home, listening to our daughter's footsteps overhead. "Can you believe this is our life?" Josephine asked softly. "Sometimes it still feels like a dream," I admitted. "Like I'm going to wake up and find myself back in that empty penthouse, alone and convinced I was happy." "But you're not," she said. "This is real. We're real." "We are," I agreed, kissing her forehead. "And I'm never taking it for granted again." That night, lying in bed beside Josephine, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. A 15-year-old girl brave enough to seek out her father. A woman strong enough to give a second chance. A man finally learning what actually mattered. The birthmark on my neck had proven I was Adelaide's father. But being her dad, being Josephine's partner, building a life worth living, that had required something far more difficult than genetics. It had required change. Growth. The humility to admit that everything I'd thought was important was actually hollow without people to share it with. My phone lit up with an email notification. A message from Richard Thornton, the board chairman. I almost ignored it, but curiosity made me open it. "Griffin," the email read. "I wanted to reach out before tomorrow's headquarters tour. I know the board has given you grief about your restructured role and reduced presence. But I've been watching the company's performance over the past year, and I have to admit you were right. Distributed leadership has made us stronger. Employee satisfaction is up. Innovation is accelerating. And you seem happier than I've ever seen you. Whatever changes you've made in your personal life, they're working. Congratulations on your engagement. See you tomorrow." I smiled and set down the phone. Even the board was coming around. Not that their approval mattered as much as it once had. I'd learned to measure success differently now. Not in quarterly earnings or stock prices, but in Adelaide's smile when I showed up for her competitions. In Josephine's hand in mine. In the warmth of coming home to a family instead of an empty penthouse. The robotics tournament the next day was intense. Adelaide's team competed against the best in the state, their robot navigating complex challenges with precision. Josephine and I sat in the bleachers, hands clasped, both of us tense with parental anxiety. When Adelaide's team took first place, we leaped to our feet, cheering loudly enough to embarrass our daughter. But the pride on her face as she accepted the gold medal made any embarrassment worth it. At the celebration dinner afterward, Adelaide made an announcement. "I have news," she said, looking between us with barely contained excitement. "I got accepted to MIT's summer engineering program. The really competitive one that only takes 30 students nationwide." "Adelaide, that's incredible," Josephine exclaimed. "When did you apply?" I asked. "You didn't mention it." 2 months ago, Adelaide admitted. "I didn't want to say anything until I knew for sure. But I got the acceptance email this morning." "We're so proud of you," I said. "This is a huge accomplishment." "There's just one thing," Adelaide said, her excitement dimming slightly. "It's expensive. Like, really expensive. And I know we've been saving for college, and I don't want to use that money for a summer program when—" "I'll cover it," I interrupted. "Adelaide, if you want to do this program, I'll handle the cost. It's not even a question." "Griffin, that's too much," Josephine started, but I shook my head. I've missed 15 years of birthdays and Christmases, I said. 15 years of being able to support my daughter's dreams. This is something I can do, something I want to do. Please let me. Josephine and Adelaide exchanged a glance, one of those silent mother-daughter conversations I was still learning to read. Okay, Josephine said finally. But Adelaide, you work part-time this summer to contribute something, even if it's small. We don't take handouts, even from family. Especially from family, Adelaide agreed. She turned to me. Thank you, Dad. This means everything. You're welcome, I said. I'm proud of you, Adelaide. Not just for getting into this program, but for being the kind of person who works this hard and dreams this big. I get it from both of you, she said. Mom's work ethic and Dad's ridiculous ambition. That's a dangerous combination, Josephine said with a laugh. The most dangerous, I agreed. The world better watch out. After dinner, as we drove home through the warm spring evening, Adelaide in the back seat excitedly researching the MIT program on her phone, Josephine reached over and took my hand. Thank you, she said quietly. For the program, for showing up today, for everything. It's what fathers do, I replied. What I should have been doing all along. You're doing it now, she said. That's what matters. The wedding was small and perfect, held in Josephine's garden on a beautiful June afternoon. Adelaide served as best woman, giving a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. My executive team attended, along with Josephine's family and our closest friends. No business press, no society photographers, just the people who actually mattered, celebrating a second chance we'd almost missed. When I slipped the ring onto Josephine's finger and promised to love her for the rest of my life, I meant every word. This wasn't the naive promise of a 25-year-old who thought he could have everything without sacrifice. This was the commitment of a man who'd learned what actually mattered, who understood that real success wasn't measured in market valuations, but in the people you loved and the life you built together. Adelaide hugged us both after the ceremony, tears streaming down her face despite her attempts to maintain composure. I have the best parents in the world, she said. Even if it took you 15 years to figure it out. We're slow learners, Josephine agreed, pulling her close. But we get there eventually, I added. That night, after the guests had left and Adelaide had gone to stay with Josephine's sister to give us a proper wedding night, Josephine and I stood in our garden. Music drifted from the house. Fairy lights twinkled overhead. Everything was peaceful and perfect. No regrets? Josephine asked, leaning against me. None, I said honestly. Well, maybe one. I wish we hadn't lost 15 years. I wish Adelaide had grown up with both her parents together. But if we hadn't lost those 15 years, we wouldn't be who we are now, Josephine pointed out. We needed that time to grow, to mature, to become people who could actually make a partnership work. You're right, I conceded. And Adelaide's pretty great, which suggests you did an excellent job even without me. We'll do an even better job together, Josephine said. Moving forward, I agreed. If you're watching this and you've ever wondered whether it's possible to rebuild what you've broken, whether second chances actually exist, whether people can really change, I want you to know something. They can. I'm living proof. The birthmark on my neck proved I was Adelaide's biological father. But becoming her dad, that required me to change everything about how I lived my life. To restructure my priorities. To admit that 15 years of chasing success had left me empty and alone. To humble myself enough to ask for forgiveness, and then prove through actions that I deserved it. And Josephine, giving me that second chance required incredible courage on her part. She had to risk being hurt again. Had to trust that I'd actually changed rather than just saying I had. Had to believe that the man who'd failed her 15 years ago could become the partner she deserved. As for Adelaide, she saved us both. Her determination to find her father, her refusal to accept that our family was permanently broken, her willingness to facilitate our reconciliation, that gave us the opportunity we never knew we needed. If you've enjoyed this story, if it's touched something in your heart, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now. Let me know this message resonated with you. And subscribe to Mr. Hearthline Stories, because I'm going to keep bringing you narratives about real-life struggles, about redemption, about the courage to choose what actually matters. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Or if you believe in second chances, just write "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline." Let me know you're out there, that these stories matter to you. This is Mr. Hearthline, reminding you that the most important things in life aren't things at all. They're the people we love, the moments we share, the legacy we leave in hearts rather than bank accounts. Success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Achievements are hollow without relationships to give them meaning. And second chances, real second chances, are possible if you're brave enough to change. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Thank you for listening to this story about a man who had everything and nothing, a woman who built a life from broken pieces, and a daughter who refused to accept that her family was beyond repair. Until next time, keep your heart open, your priorities straight, and your family close. Remember that it's never too late to choose what really matters. Your story isn't over. Make it count. I'll see you in the next story.